Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new episode of Eve Echoes. After a well-deserved period of resting, I'm now fully charged and ready to tackle everything that I can find my hands on. And speaking of which, there's been a lot of stuff going on recently, including the patch notes, including the separate server that will be for the Chinese players only. There's a lot to discuss. Plus, we'll get to showcase a next Battleship in, the voting that you guys took. It's going to be the Megathron, and after that we will pick in the next episode, we will do the Armageddon. So let's start off with some basic stuff. First of all, it's the patch notes. We've got the patch notes that were deployed on Wednesday. There have been quite a lot of fiasco regarding patch notes. And basically what they did was they released patch notes, which was later changed. And I'm referring to the item mentioning the increase of the industrial ships to 20,000 cubic meters. Now, initially, you can see row 12, the special cargo hold volume of all 4 non-faction T8 industrial ships is now 20,000 cubic meters. This stated the cargo hold. I know because I read it in the same day as Sovereign did and many others. And well, I can only assume this was a mistake, probably either due to translation, to bad translation, or, I don't know, language barriers. As you know, developers are Chinese. You've seen interviews with them, they don't fare very well with English. Now, some of them do, but some of them don't. And this shouldn't have been an issue because Joseph, the community manager, who usually posts these patch notes, is well endowed in the English section. Unfortunately, I'm guessing it was a miscommunication between the product owners, or I don't know, the producers, or the development team, and actually what kind of features entered the game, and probably he had to interpret what he received from them, and this led up to a massive confusion, which was not actually a confusion. It seemed more like a ninja change. Well, it was a ninja change probably because they figured out, oh, well, oopsie, let's switch it out quickly before somebody notices the damage was already done. This ended up being a very nasty change, as a lot of people got frustrated and angry. I don't blame them. However, they did put out a message, everyone will be receiving a compensation in skill points. That's just 20,000 skill points. I don't know, this feels like a cheap bribery, like with some cheap candy. I will go over the game changes because, well, some of them are nice, some of them are ish. The best next thing worth mentioning is actually the pull range of interdiction spheres around warp destination has been adjusted from 1,000 kilometers to 300 kilometers, which basically is a nerf. Another cool thing that was added is the ISK from the expired buy orders created by the insurance system, that did not get fulfilled, will now be returned to the insurance pool instead of being consumed by the system, actually working as a sink. So that has been replaced, the money gets back in the insurance pool, and it's going to be used up on creating future orders. Next topic of discussion basically involves the not-so announcement of having a separate server for the Chinese. Sovereign already mentioned in his video, so I'm just going to try to add some more details as in what I think is cool and what I think is not so cool. The fact that Chinese regulation basically imposes, just like any other state, if the Eve Echo server would have been located in Romania, it would have probably had to abide to Romanian regulation, and especially if it was, generally speaking, inside European Union, it would have required to comply with the regulations inside the European Union, which includes loot boxes. Remember, Valve and Electronic Arts have already lost a couple of lawsuits regarding loot boxes. So when it comes to regulation, you can't do much. Basically, your hands are tied, but whatever the regulatory body imposes, if they impose that, the players from within the country need to be in touch and abide to some specific regulations, and that the game provider must abide to some specific regulations, then you don't have any choice. I work in a software development company where, well, basically we interact with regulatory bodies across countries worldwide, and we deal with this stuff every single day. So it's not something that you want to toy around with. It's either this or you lose your license of hosting that service or providing that service to the public. Now, that's something very important, because if you lose your license, if NetEase would lose their license to offer the service, the game is in fact a service, by the way. You're paying and you're getting fun in return. And when it comes to Eve Echoes, you know, fun can be relative to what we don't know. But if they would have lose their license, then no one could play the game at all, unless they just use and operate a system outside of China. And also the development team needs to not be involved with developing stuff that, you know, you just lost your license. It's like owning a fast food. You're banned from that country, period. So that's the not so cool part. There's also another not so cool part about it. Well, because they're going to have to split the servers, basically we don't know if the resources will be divided in terms of the development. This is pretty much what Sovereign mentioned. The one thing that I am really sad about is losing a lot of player base. Why is that? Well, because Echoes has already lost a chunk of its player base with various changes, with various poor choice of implementation on some specific key features. We won't dig up stuff, you know, dead stuff from the past. Actually, it's not so dead. It's still currently running. But all in all, it's going to be a massive reduction of the player base, which literally translates to you going from point A to point B in Eve Echoes 50 jumps apart and not encountering any soul inside any system for a very big portion of your road. Now, other people might argue, well, this is fine, we can finally roam around free. Well, not quite. If you don't have other players to play with, what good the game is. I mean... And also, not every Chinese player is a botter. I mean, they people just like us, and they play the game. Some of us do use botting mechanism, but hey, guess what? There's players from Europe and even North Americas, or even all other places on the globe that had farms, botting farms, and so on and so forth. The next topic is going to be the developers' weekly Q&A, which covers 3rd of March to 9th of March. We have a couple of questions and answers, and make details of special modes such as Nightbird mode, Barn mode, and Defense mode more visible when clicking on a ship in the ship tree. Would be nice to see the actual percentage changes in damage resist speed without having to buy the ship. This is something that we actually covered in one of our previous videos when we did the special modes of the ship. Without actually going inside the ship, you have no fucking clue what the special mode does. Plus, there's a lot of ambiguity in the name of the mode, the actual tooltip in the mode, the information that is displayed in the panel. There's all sorts of irregularities there. I don't think these were addressed, and this is pretty much an obvious result of that. We hope to implement this sooner than later, which should be live in the game no later than April. Well, this is a promise. If I were you guys, I would not try to throw out promises that we cannot keep. At least not at this point, because, I don't know, probably the player base is a bit pissed. Moving onwards, I really enjoy the mechanics of the current NPCs, rats. It is getting a little too easy now, especially with more and more people hitting tech level 9. The plans to rebalance NPCs, make them harder, or add new content for those of us that enjoy the PvE lifestyle. Rebalancing NPC pirates will also be part of a large balance update in May. So yeah, there's a balance patch, big balance patch coming in May. That server will be available towards the end of April, where we'll be able to experience the changes before it goes on the main server. Now, there's quite a lot of stuff that was mentioned there to be included in this big balance patch, and I'm not sure if we're going to see everything in the April test event. We've got the armor stuff. You know, armor tanking is crappy. We've got the destroyers. You know, destroyers are useless. We've got some frigs that would try to raise the alarm, like they're pretty much useless. No one is flying them. There's also the issue with drones being highly reliable, but the most shitty in terms of damage and in terms of game mechanics and how you interact with them. They did add a small change to that, but it's still dumb to switch out drones in mid-combat one by one. It's horrendous. However, the change is useful as it allows you in PvE missions to switch quickly to something more useful to deal with small frigates and stuff. And now we get another idea about the NPC pirates being part of that update. I'm highly curious to see what the NPCs will receive. Are they going to be harder, or will they be applying tactics like, you suddenly get yourself with an entire sniping spawn? Because, I don't know, the AI has observed that in the previous 2 waves you just sat at 100 kilometers sniping them with sentry drones. So the 4th wave or the 3rd wave, they're just going to spawn an all-sniping battleship spawn, which is going to push your shit up your ass so hard that you'll no longer try to do this solo. I have no idea. Moving to the 3rd question, I only recently discovered Scout, Inquisitor and Dead Space anomalies. Is there a way to incorporate these into the advanced tutorial system, perhaps with storyline missions? We will introduce more difficult anomalies later on, and the new tutorial system will focus on teaching players how to use different weapons and modules. This will help to better prepare them for more difficult anomalies in the future. And the 4th is, will faction drones be elite NPC drop, or will they be available as blueprints like the normal ones? Faction drones will be included as part of the arena update in August. Holy hell, we've got to wait until August. Additional details on acquiring these will be shared in the near future. So, they really announced that the arena future will be tied into the LP store, which is the loyalty point store. So I'm guessing you'll be able to buy faction drones using loyalty points. That's pretty much it about the fillers of this episode. We're going to move to the main topic, which is covering the Megathron. Now, Megathron is a very beautiful ship. It's the Galenta Tech Level 9, which uses railguns. And there's quite a lot of interesting things that you can do with it. Unfortunately, I'm having a second thought about the Raven being the worst level 9 battleship, because the Megathron is catching up to it really fast. I've been experimenting with it in the past days while I was resting and picking up my energy back and trying to film stuff for you guys. I've tried 2 fits. I tried a short range, a brawling fit, and a long range, which is not that much long range after all. In terms of the brawling fit, I basically tried doing the same I did with the Raven, which is slap some close range guns, which in theory should be far better than the torpedoes, because the Megathron uses railguns, and railguns don't have explosion velocity, and if you web and scram the target, basically keep it still, even at close range, the railguns, even the snub-nosed, the ones that are really up close ones, can deal massive amounts of damage. The only problem is, well, let's look at the slots. What can you see different than Raven? Well, first of all, the 7 slots pretty much the same as Raven. The low slots the high slots, which are 7 number, pretty much the same as Raven. So are the low slots, 6 of them. However, the mid slots, this is where stuff gets weird. So I was able to do a good fit with the Raven because I had 4 medium slots, and I could use 2 large Nosferatu to maintain the tank. Also, the fit that I did in the close range for the railguns, the snub-nosed one, the DPS is lower than the Raven, even with the same amount of damage modules applied, which is a 1 magnetic stabilizer. I had to reduce a bit of the tank in order to add more damage so it could be on par with the Raven. So what I did on the rig slot, I basically removed one of the shield rigs that was helping me boost better. If you remember on the Raven, we had 1 cycle time reduce rig and 1 boost amount per cycle rig. I did remove one of them, and I added 1 more DPS just to get the damage to a somewhat similar level to the Raven. Unfortunately, by doing that, I basically sacrificed a little bit of tank, which was the exact bit of tank that was needed for the Megathron to survive. That rig apparently tips the scale in favor of having a good tank to survive the last wave of a Tech Level 10 story. In our case, we did the same sweet poison just to have a terms of comparison, and basically without that rig, the Megathron quickly succumbed to the incoming damage, and I almost lost it. However, in terms of good strategy, like, you know, you can do massive amounts of damage as long as you keep your stuff in place, well, 4 medium slots would have been great. I have no idea why they removed 1 mid slot, because that was the point of the brawling fit on the Megathron, to be able to keep stuff in place, meaning you need at least 2 webs and 1 scrambler. Now, if I put these, then I have no room for the large Nosferatu. If I put 2 webs, then the micro-warp driving frigates drive you nuts. If you put just 1 web, 1 scram, and 1 large Nosferatu, yeah, you're going to fare better in terms of capacity usage. By the way, railguns use capacitor. Unfortunately, you won't be able to do much against fast-moving targets. Even though you web them and you scram them, the speed is still going to be big when trying to deal with them, so you'll have to do a tactic I called mimicking, which you just click on a said ship, after it has been webbed and scrammed, you look at the trajectory it's following and you tap in space while looking at the enemy NPC. You double tap in space into the direction it's going so that you can create a 0 angular velocity, meaning the transversal is 0, you're basically flying on the same path, and the tracking is maximum, and you get to inflict maximum damage. You get to one-shot these frigates or these destroyers. However, by using an afterburner to try to evade some of the stuff that's going on the battlefield, you're also messing up your tracking. That's why I didn't use a micro-warp drive. But an afterburner still affects your tracking, and I wasn't able to apply maximum damage when using the afterburner. And I didn't manage to get much out of the afterburner with the long-range fit either. We'll get to that in a moment. So the main disadvantage of the close-range brawling fit, as you can see in the background, is basically removing 1 tank element in order to get a bit of boost on damage to be able to deal with stuff faster, actually cause the ship fit to basically fail in front of the last wave of a tech level 10 mission. Also, the fact that you don't have 4 mid slots, you can't fit it properly. You need a Nosferatu to rely on the shields. No, you cannot put a large capacitor battery. Somebody suggested large capacitor battery. If you add that, you need to get something out. If you get something out, you take out your afterburner, you no longer have mobility. You take out the damage mod, your damage plummets even more. And if you take out a tank element, well, what is the point of trying to tank it if you can't by default? So moving on to the long range fit that I envisioned, which is not that long range. I was a bit disappointed. I expected a lot more out of these rifled railgun, the large ones. I have no idea. Does the Naga actually have bonuses for sniping? Let me check. Would you look at that? The Naga has 5% larger railgun optimal range, and it's a battle cruiser. It shouldn't be able to fire further away than an actual battleship using the large guns. Holy shit. Yeah, the Naga 2 has the same bonus. Well, the Megathron basically has poop. It's got only minus 5% large railgun activation time, it fires faster, and plus 5% large railgun tracking speed. So it does give you some tracking, but apparently still sucks if you use an afterburner. And just minus 5% inertia modifier. There's no bonus in optimal range. Holy shit. Look at these. This is basically a character with tech level 10, all skills maxed up, with 2 tracking computers, and the optimal range is still shit. It's 56 kilometers and 33 accuracy fall-off. Now, but damn, this sucks. This is horrendous. I mean, there's shit on the battlefield in tech level 10 missions. They're gonna shoot your ass out from 130 kilometers away. How the fuck do you do that? The bonuses on the Megathron look really, really awful. After actually toying around with it, I mean, I have the impression it's worse than the Raven. And I've tried doing the tech level 10 wave with this sniping fit as well. It's not really actually sniping. What the fuck? It's more like a mid-range. You sit around 50 kilometers, 70 kilometers. You can warp in at 100 kilometers, and you can snipe some of the small stuff that's coming directly at you. But good lord in heaven, you need to sit still. I mean, even on the sentry drones, you can actually deploy the sentry drones, and you can, with the Dominics, you can go the hell wherever you want to go to avoid damage, while the enemy is still coming towards you. You won't be able to do much with the Megathron, unfortunately. Not with the brawling one, and not with the sniping. Yeah, the sniping is valid because you still get to keep some range, but as soon as you get webbed, if you don't manage to shake the webbers and the scrammers, you're pretty much toast, because they're going to slow you down a lot, and the rest of the gang is going to be catching up, and you'll soon find yourself inside the egg, just floating into space. Now, some of the changes that I did for the long range fit is I actually completely dropped the Nosferatu. No need for that, because you don't actually need a Nosferatu. So I did add a target painter, and the rest of the two slots are pretty much the same. You can try to apply the same tactic of mimicking your opponent's movement in order to try to apply some damage. Sometimes it works. I've only kept 2 shield modules, just a resistance, because, you know, some ships will still fire from 130 kilometers and will hit you. So you need some resistances, and we've got 1 shield booster, which you don't want to use very often. If you do get to use it, and you get to keep it for more cycles, then it means you're going to die soon, because whatever caught you, if you don't manage to shake it off, you know, the other NPCs will just come in and destroy you. In terms of rigs, there's no rig for the optimal range. It's only there's only rigs for accuracy fall-off for the railguns, and I think the only good rig is basically the burst aerator, which gives you more DPS. And that's pretty much it on this fit. I did try to do the last wave with this fit as well. It works a bit better than the brawling fit, I must say. But huge disadvantages, and in some cases I can pretty much compare it to a very, very shitty version of its the Evil Line counterpart. Especially for the brawling mode, the inability to fit 2 webs be able to deal with NPCs as long as keeping your tank. Somehow the slot loadout for a lot of ships seems to have gone south. I have no idea why. Why was the design changes made towards this direction? No idea. All I can say is that I would recommend not getting the Megathron unless you really want to do, I don't know, some close range pew pew, or you actually want to do this in a fleet. But for solo, I would still go for the Dominic. So far, there's no battleship yet that I've reviewed to be able to match the versatility of the Dominics and what it can do. Actually, any drone boat. We'll get to see if the Dominics gets to maintain its place of queen of tech level 9 battleships once we review tomorrow the Armageddon. Remember, guys, there's a weekly giveaway community question of the week. 2 Mega Combo clones. We'll announce the winners next week. In order to participate, please leave a comment below and try to answer the question: what is your favorite playstyle? Brawling, mid-range, long-range, sniping, whatever. And don't forget to add also why, because I'm highly interested in your opinions, and there's a lot of discussions to be sparked around which is better, which is good, which should be tried, and which should be avoided. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what we're seeing here. Thank you guys for watching, and a very big shout out to my channel supporters, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.